87% of realtors that get into the business get out of the business after 2 years. That does not exist in our world.
We have massive visions around growing our businesses, and we are always looking to add talent to our world. We do everything in our power to ensure the people we surround ourselves with defy the odds, get into production, and build massive lives for themselves.
We have interviewed some of the top realtors in the world. If you're a new realtor, a top producer, or CEO of a mega team, Sales Beast Podcast is your blueprint for success.
With locations all across Canada, reach out to us to talk about partnership and opportunities. We are looking forward to it.
Yes, I'm the boss.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Sales Beast Podcast. This amazing man has been on the show. This is his third time. I'm not sure if that's because we love him. We do love him. It may also be because he invites himself. But either way, it's a win for me. So everyone, Dylan Suitor, thank you so much for joining us today. Reason we're having you on, a lot of people don't know this about you, some do. You're absolutely obsessed with growing yourself and learning. One of my core values, it's a core value of me personally, and I've made it a core value of our team, it's grow or die. The only difference between you and the person you want to become are the people you hang out with. That's why I hang out with you whenever I can. The podcasts you listen to and the books you read. One of my guiding principles is that if I have a singular focus bordering on obsession, one day I will wake up the absolute best in the world at what I do. And I think you're well on your way to becoming the absolute best in the world at what you do. And I'm blessed to call you my friend. How's that for an intro, Dylan?
Wow.
The last intro was sick. This one is next level.
I like that. That was awesome. Makes me feel really good. Good way to start my morning, I guess. No, I'm pumped up and to conquer the day. But yeah, I appreciate that. I think you said a lot there, and the growth piece is really important. Everything grows to the extent that you do. And so your business will, your life will, your relationships will, every aspect of you will grow to the extent that you do. And I've made it a big focus of my world and my life to understand what people before me have done and implement that. And a mentor and dear friend of mine, Tony Robbins, had made a comment every time you hear him. He's like, there's kind of three types of learning. There's kind of the self-learning, which is where you read books, podcasts, what we're doing right now. And it's the easiest to do. You can do it on your own time, but it also is the least absorbent. So it's important to do, but it's the one that you get out of all types of learning, the one that takes longest to develop and grow to where you're at. The next level is coaching, one-to-one coaching. And I know that you worked with Marianne for a long time. I'm not sure who you're coaching with now, but I know it's someone. I know I've seen you at Jeff Glover events. I've seen you all over the place. I've never missed a mega camp or family reunion since being a Keller Williams agent in 6 years. I went before I even knew what it was. Bold, I went before I was even licensed. So education and kind of developing and having that extra push where you're an hour coaching call or 30-minute coaching call or one day in Bold or whatever that may be, you're getting that one-to-one coaching, you're getting that group coaching, but you're getting a lot of it and it's kind of drinking from a bit of a fire hose. And then the type of learning that you get the most from, you don't recognize it, but it picks up over time, is because you're subconsciously learning, and that's in full immersion. That's where you do a 5 days at family reunion or 5 days at mega camp, or you go and you do a conference with Jeff Glover, and it's just back to back to back to back to back. And you know as well as I do, you don't sleep at those events. You do the event, then you do the social after the event, then you have a nice dinner after the event. And if you're getting old like I am, you go to bed around 10, 11. But if you're back in my younger years, then I would be out until 2 or 3 and then back up again at 6 or 7 to get back to the event and do it again and again and again and again. And where I've actually found the most growth and success in that has been the people who have done it before and are continuing to coach and train it. So before my time was the Zig Ziglar time. And then I hired a coach by the name of Stefan Arnio when I first came into this. I remember the moment where I met him at a little conference in Toronto, and I said, I'll come back in 2 years. I can't afford you right now. And he said, no one ever does. And that's true. Most people don't. Most people never come back. And I came back to him 2 years later, and they said, I'm ready to sign up. Where do I sign? And that was about a $70,000 payment to get that coaching one-to-one with him. And that was a coaching one-to-one session. It came with all the other programs and stuff, but I needed to invest in myself. I couldn't afford it at the time. And I think that's the big part, is like, you can't afford it, you still do it. And so Stefan pushed me. He actually had 3 big goals for me. He said, write a book, buy 100+ unit apartment building, and spend over $250,000 on a brand. And I don't like marketing. I mean, we're KW, we're prospecting based, marketing enhanced. We're not marketing based. You're just throwing stuff to the wall, seeing what sticks, and with the marketing approach. And so I was not loving the whole brand concept. And it took me a few years, but eventually I did invest in a brand. And that's where I got verified on Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of stuff by investing in that. I'm still to buy a 100-unit apartment building. I'm looking at one. I'm supposed to have an irrevocable till tomorrow at 107 units for 21 million. I don't know if I'm going to pull through on that. It's going to take about 12 million to close on it, and I don't have it yet. So if I buy that, it's jumping out of a parachute or jumping out of a plane without a parachute, hoping to God that I could find $12 million in this current environment's a challenge, but put pressure on yourself, and that's where it comes through. And then the third thing is to write a book. And I've done a number of consultations and meetings and whatnot to really get there. But I think those three big items are the three items that Stefan challenged me to do years ago. And I could personally write a book just on those three things: the lessons, the education, what I got from coaching with Stefan. And then more recently, I started spending close to $500,000 a year on Tony Robbins. And I don't say that to brag, but I say that to say that the biggest investment you can make is into yourself. Because if I lost everything tomorrow and I went bankrupt, financially gone, whatever else gone, no one can take the education, the experiences that I've learned and I've understood. And as much as you want to say that you heard it from someone else and you implemented it, you'll hear it from someone else and you'll implement some of it. And then you'll say, I can do it better. For some crazy reason, you decide to do it better than someone who's teaching you that's done it before. And then you fail forward and you learn through it failing forward. But I think the idea of someone else speaking and telling you something's possible and stretching your thought process, even if not what you implement that day, that's where the growth really happens. Because now you have a bit of a path or guidance or that light that shines to show you where to go when you do fall down. And I think that's the biggest piece from that full immersion that I get is it's subconsciously in me. I go to a Tony event and all of a sudden I'm saying different things, or I go to Bold and I'm saying different things. And all of a sudden I was talking to Mike on my team the other day, and I have my 5 questions in 4-1 that I got from Adam Hergenrother years and years ago, and he fills it out every week. And it was funny because he actually sent in his number 2, he was kind of struggling with some of his agents getting into production. Like, they're doing the lead gen, they're doing the work, but they're not really seeing the deals come together. And I was like, well, you know this from shift, which is you do twice as much work for half the return when you're in a shifting market. But the part that he said afterwards was amazing. And it was, I hope that my agents figure it out. And then in brackets, he said, Dylan quote, hope is not a strategy, which comes straight out of Bold. And I didn't even have to say it, but it's embedded now. It's that subconscious coming through. And I think that's where the growth and the development really happens.
Can we pause for a minute there? So I think one thing you taught me, seeing you go off to West Palm and spend 500 grand a year hanging out with Tony Robbins, this man that I think he's got 100 and something businesses that do over 7 billion a year in revenue. What it's taught me is that you can go out and just buy a mentor. What it's really taught me is that no one will mentor you unless you add value to that mentor's life. You can do it by cutting a check. You can do it the way I did it with my first 2 mentors. I got into real estate. I made them probably 400 grand my first year knowing. That got their attention. I think as realtors, salespeople, and just humans, if oftentimes we want that mentor, hear all the time, you are the average of the 5 people you spend your time with. And Mike expects Dylan to sacrifice his time and pour into me without any return to Dylan. No, if I joined Dylan's team and I made Dylan $1 million a year, yeah, Dylan would give me his time, give me his everything. If I wrote a check to Dylan for 500 grand, Dylan would give me his time, he'd give me his everything. There are too many people out there taking. What can I extract from Dylan? How can I get leads from Dylan? How can I get Dylan to help me? With zero thought of investing anything back into Dylan. Like, how fucking stupid is that?
I guess we can swear on this podcast. This is cool. I like it.
It's just you and me. There's no Anna here to keep things clean.
No,
like Tony Robbins is not going to give you the time of day without the 500 G's. Maybe he will now that he's your friend and he builds a relationship with them. But to start, absolutely not.
I had my phone beside me, and I'm so proud to actually show this. This is me and Tony's wife, Sage.
Nice.
At their house in Florida when I was there not long ago. And this is the photo that I've waited 4 years to have.
Beautiful. That is
doing
sweet.
our meditation, our blessing at the end of the event, and the photographer said, "Come, get up here, go." And I'm okay. And, hey, Tom, thank you so much for everything you've done. And he said, Dylan, I've been watching you grow through 4 years, and people don't realize that although I have 10, 20, 30, 50,000 people, like Tony, in the audience, that he sees the people that participate, he sees the people that do. And I think it's easy for us to get caught in a few things I want to share here. One is the Darren story I'll get to afterwards, but it's easy for us to get caught in the fact that we're in an audience watching one person, and that one person can't possibly see all of us. So I'm hiding. I'm on my phone underneath the table, head down, whatever that may be. I don't know if you've ever spoken from stage, on a large stage or anywhere. I mean, even in Keller Williams classroom, 10 people, you can see everything everyone's doing, period. The person on stage can tell you, they can pick apart with a moment's notice the 5, 10, 20% of people that are actually going to do something or implement or take action. So I've always kind of thought, like, I'm lucky. Like, I get lucky on everything. When I go to Stag and Doze and I spend hundreds of dollars on buying tickets. Why are you there? To donate, to give away. I don't care about the tickets. I'll play all the games. I'll throw all the money. I'll buy people shots. I'll do whatever. Like, I'm just here to give. I'm there to give. And by giving so much, I end up walking out of every Stag and Doze with the most prizes. I'm giving them away on the way out. I'm like, here's a TV for you. Here's a speaker for you. Here's a bottle of Jack Daniels for you. And it's because I'm showing up there to give and just throwing money at them, saying, this is for your wedding or whatever it is. And let's just throw money. I think the same thing is true in participating. I know the same thing is true in participating when you're doing this full immersion. So circling back to the question with the beginning where I said, like, self-taught, coaching, full immersion. There is 90% of the population that is never going to listen to this podcast or any other podcast, maybe 95. Then there's the 5 or 10% that will listen to it. And then of that 5 or 10%, there's probably 5 or 10% that'll do something about it. And be the person that does something about it, because you're noticed from a distance. You're recognized for distance. If you want to join Mike Johnson's team at MRN, he sees how many times you watch this podcast. He'll hear the conversations you have at the podcast. Like, there's times where we do a KPA when we're making our hires, and I watch every part of those videos. I've leveraged out in multiple companies. I watched it 2 or 3 times speed to get through a bunch of them faster so I can get more content. But every time I have these meetings, whether I watch a video, Zoom video, or whatever it is, and someone's like, hey, prep for this, I pick up on some of the items that are really important and I reiterate it. Even yesterday, I was on with Flipspace and Endgame with Sean Provenche, and he's like, did you watch the 21-minute video I sent you on Friday that tells you that we're gonna what we're talking about today? And I was like, yeah. And I went to my chief of staff and my marketing manager and said, we need this for every company. I love the mission values. I really love that, Sean. You crushed it at the beginning. You showed us mission values. You did what you talked about. You implemented what we spoke about 2.5, 3 years ago when we launched this company. And number 2, I went to my EA and I said, from minute 5:30 to 8, he shows you the back end of what I've wanted for 4 years. It's my 12-week ABC onboarding. It's the educational piece. It's video content. It's all this value built into this video. And at the beginning of the conversation, he's like, did you watch the video? I'm like, I did. By the end of the conversation, he damn well knew that I'd watched that video. Because you learn, you pick up a couple of things, and it's the buzzwords, it's the keywords, it's the proof that you've done it. It's taking action. So it's like when you go to these, when you attend these things, whether you're listening to a podcast, reading a book, going to a one-on-one, getting coaching, whatever that may be, like, your job when you're in a coaching relationship should be that when you show up the next week for that coaching call, if your coach doesn't bring up your homework, you should. Don't hide behind the fact that, oh, my coach didn't confirm that I did 100 contacts this week, or I door knocked for 50 houses I said I would, or I followed up on Facebook with the 100 people that I promised I would, whatever that may be. Don't wait for your coach or your mentor or your trainer or whoever it is to ask you, because it's not their job for you to develop and to be better. They're putting on something in a room that they know that there's uber value that they're doing, they're going to give, whether it's a one-on-one coaching or it's full immersion in an event. And there could be a compensation to that. There could be money that's returned from that. But the number one thing that they're doing when they're going and presenting there is they know they're going to impact someone. And if you impact that one person or the 1% of people or the 5% of people, that's why that person's on stage. And it goes back to your comment on, like, there's a way to get in a room with mentors or coaches or trainers. And it's like, I'm going to show up and give everything. And it brings me back to the RAIN concept, Real Estate Investors Network. This is actually something I would say is broad to everything. It's not just to investors, but they have this like triangle. You have these 3 different colors, and it's time, money, and knowledge. You can show up with time on your hands, with lots of money, or with the knowledge to do something. And what Rain always said, and this was in their Acre event that happened every March or whatever, you can get good at all three, but you can get great at one. And when you can bring one of those to the table really, 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 really well in anything, you will find other people that are very interested in coming to the table. If you're really good with time and you're starting out, time is what you have. You're going to do everything. That's what you did. You had time. And in both your mentor relationships, you made them money because you came with time. They had the knowledge. So collectively, between the two of you, mentor and you were able to take your time and their knowledge to create more money. Same thing with real estate investing. The 107 unit apartment building. I don't have the money for it right now. I damn well have the knowledge on how I'm going to turn it over. I've run the model on it a billion different ways. And I built a relationship and a reputation within the multifamily space that I'm a guy that when I put my pen to paper, I'm going to close. So those selling agents are putting me above everyone else, probably the lower price on the purchase, because of the fact that they know that I can fulfill, I can complete that project, and I'll close on it. They see money on that. And the last thing I'll say about that is we did something called the Real Estate Growth Summit, which was actually quite funny. We see this thing, it was actually just in the background. I didn't even plan this. We did that a few years ago, and I know you loved it. You're a part of it as well. But we had a key sponsor who gave us $50,000 to make that happen. And it wouldn't have happened otherwise. And he didn't even show up for his booth. But the reason he did that was because he saw something in me. And he used to run big events, 2, 3, 4, 500 people events. And I was at his house last weekend. And he sells life insurance, and the policies, he gets paid like 100, 150% on a premium. So if you buy a 50 or 100 or 150 or $500,000 policy, you're paying after 10 years. He gets your first year of premium, maybe your first 1.5 years of premium as a paycheck. So for me, it's a $500,000 policy. He gets like $500,000 to $700,000. And when I first met him, prior to this event going on and the Growth Summit and all these events that he had, we sat down and we had a lunch. We had pizza and beer or something. The lunch turned into dinner. It was a great conversation. I loved it. But he said, I will give you 50% of everyone you refer me, without hesitating, knowing that it is $700,000 on a $500,000 policy. I'm walking, this is a $350,000 paycheck, which a lot of people would be like, yeah, give me that all day long. Without hesitating, my comment was, I don't want your money. I don't want a penny of your referrals. I just want a 10 out of 10 experience anytime I deal with you and anytime I refer someone to you. I never want to have to worry that when I refer someone to you to do business, that they're at risk. I never want to have to worry that that person is going to call me and say, you referred me to this guy and it didn't work out well. And that right there could not be more relevant in our current year in 2023. The economic turmoil, the challenges, the changes, the recession, everything you don't want to talk about that we can talk about if you want, all those things lead back to do what you say you're going to do. That is how you get ahead. And people can tell you from stage, they can teach you, they can instruct you, they can mentor you, they can coach you. But no one is going to coach you. No one is going to mentor you unless you do what you say you're going to do. Marianne Gillespie, it took me 3 years to even talk to her. And when I did, she had heard about me and took me on as a client. But famous words of Marianne Gillespie, I don't have room on my calendar for anyone. I don't take on everyone. Going back to that comment that I made about the winning everything with a Stag and Doze or a charity event or whatever it is, every time that I've shown up to any coaching or training relationship in my life, even Tony Robbins, it's an application. Not everyone's chosen. And it's easy to get stuck in the, well, not everyone's chosen, so they say. That's just their way to try and create this limited number of people, which doesn't really happen. They just apply and accept everyone. But time is finite. And I learned that the hard way when I went to join the Platinum Lions. In 2021, I was in Austin, Texas for the Tony Robbins relationship event. It was October 2021. And I was told, I didn't know what these Platinum Lions, there was 40 of them at the front. I had no idea what they were. And I heard that there was 3 spots available at the beginning of the session. It was not advertised anywhere. And it's an extra $75,000 for a year. You go to Tony's house once and you do an adventure trip once, you get a bunch of other stuff behind the scenes, but that's really what you really do it for. And I was like, oh my God, I can't afford that. I can't afford that. And I waited. I didn't take action that moment. And I went the last day of the event. I said, I'm ready to sign up for Lions. I'll make it work. And they said, sorry, the 3 tickets are sold. They're gone. And I said, hold up. I heard that there's a limit, but I didn't know it was real. Like I keep seeing this thing grow, and I don't do that. And then she said, and this is the last year because Tony and Sage are having a daughter and they don't want people at their house anymore. And I said that my hesitancy to buy a ticket to sign up for the Platinum Lions, which was my opportunity to spend time with Tony at his house, I waited. And that couple of days that I waited lost me that opportunity. Now I got really lucky and they pushed it one more year. So I just got back about a month ago from Tony Robbins' house in West Palm Beach with 40 people, incredible people. And the group that's there, I mean, every year they send something to Tony, and every year they seem to extend it, but next year it won't be at his house. I literally was at the absolute last time that Tony Robbins will ever have people at his house, most likely from an event like this.
That's incredible. You said something, people don't talk about it a lot. Just do what you say you're going to do every time. So I'm not sure how many people you lead in your world, but I'd be willing to bet that when you give guidance or direction to 9 out of 10 of them, 9 don't execute it 100%. They signed up. Dylan, please, can I join your world? Please, Dylan, will you mention me? Please, Dylan, can you get me to where you are? It's amazing. And then once you're in their world, this is something I learned from Tony Robbins, that law of familiarity kicks in. We get comfortable having Dylan in our world. We get comfortable having Nick in our world, and we stop listening. So Dylan says, jump 10 times. The first time we'll do it 10, and the next time we'll do it 9. And then eventually we'll think, fuck it, what's Dylan know? Like, I'm not going to jump at all. The number one way, in my opinion, to grow confidence in the self, which is what's most important in this world, is to do what you say you're going to do at 100% every single time. Now, the number one way to get that mentor to take interest in you is when they advise you to do something, you execute it on it at 100%, not 90 out of 100, not 85 out of 100. When you do that over and over and over and over again, the Dylan Suitors of the world or the Tony Robbins of the world will view you as that different person in the audience that's truly engaged. And there aren't that many of you out there. And when you do that, my experience is that mentor will literally break their back for you, go to war for you, sacrifice their life for you. That's when true growth happens. Very few people do that, though.
The milestones that I've accomplished in my life, you're just bringing this to reality. And this is something that's, you said, fuck it, we'll wing it. And this is what's coming out here, is that Stefan Arneo told me no one comes back. He expected to never see me again. No skin off his back. $70,000. He only takes on 12 clients anyways, legitimately. And he used to, God bless. Again, I went back. And not only did I go back, every single event that I went to, I had a name tag in the very front seat. Stefan went to find me. I spoke to Stefan 2 days before he died. I had a 30-minute coaching call, went 2.5 hours. He was in the hospital and died of cancer 2 days later. Didn't even tell me. I knew something was different. We just kept one conversation going. And that was the first time in the 2-year coaching relationship I had that he really pushed me hard on the $250,000 on a brand. And he connected me that day to the social media company he had 26 times that he owned. And I literally hired them that year and I executed on it, almost in his memory. And I'm happy I did. I go to the next step and I say that Keller Williams Young Professionals, like this event right now, like this, powered by KWIP Canada, Real Estate Growth Summit. This happened once. We had almost 700 real estate professionals come to an event. Gary Keller has never donated, no, I shouldn't say donated. He's never given capital to an event in Canada at all. We got 50,000 from him and 50,000 from KWIP Canada to make that happen, along with the 50,000 we got. It was a not-for-profit. We didn't get a penny. We put a ton of time and energy into it. But it took me 3 years of going to our regional director at the time, David Bristow, and him mentoring me without being like, he wasn't giving me his time. He would say, go to this event. Wouldn't tell me why. I showed up every single time. Go to this event. Wouldn't tell me why. He showed up every single time. And it was because of him that this event happened. It was because of him that I ended up owning a market center. It was because of him that KDB Legacies exists. Because it was Sandy and I. I went to Sandy 17 times before he joined me he was the mentor guy for the committee, and then eventually the vice president. KDB YP would never have been as big as it was without Sandy joining. And we brought unique skill sets to the table. I showed up and brought really leadership and a tenacity to do whatever and a bit of a vision. And he was the executioner. He would go and do those 50 coffee dates. I told everyone in my world to do 50 coffee dates in 50 days. I did it 3 times. I don't think I've seen a single person get to 50. Some people got to 30, 40, they tagged me and it was great. And they never did it. 50 coffee dates in 50 days. I learned that from Kristen Cole. She didn't know. She was speaking in front of the stage. She didn't know who I was or what I was doing. And she said that every expansion team, the goal of every realtor and every agent is to do 2 appointments a day, every day, 5 days a week. She gave a calendar, 8:30 to 9, script and role play, 9 to 12, lead generate, 12 to 1, lead follow-up, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 9. Those last 2-hour blocks, those are your blocks for appointments or free time. Take 2 of them and do it every day. Well, I don't have 2 buyers or 2 sellers, is what everyone says. Great, and pop by. Go see a past client, go see a friend, go see a family member. Every single time. I cannot stress that enough. Mike Paolini's with me 3 years. Now he has his own team within my team. And he told me when I met him that he was going to join my team and learn everything he could in 2 years and start his own team. I knew I had to make my world big enough so that he'd stay. And now I'm seeing all the teachings that I taught him in the 12-week Navy SEAL onboarding that he took maybe 30, 40% of it executed, which got him to a really successful career. He's been $200,000-300,000 a year ever since he joined me because of taking 30 or 40% of what I said. Now I'm seeing him take 60 or 70% of what I said. And he's at 16 deals. He's got 19 more listings while teaching 3 agents and hiring a director of operations. He's got a dog, which was his personal goal. He's got a cottage up north, which he had when he joined me, but he's going up and spending time. He has a place in Dominican that he goes down as an investment property. He owns a house that he loves on Maple Ave in Hamilton that he wanted because he did 30 or 40% to start, and he's worked his way up to probably 60, 70, 80%. Then I go to Tony Robbins, and it's like, when I first heard about him, I'm like, platinum partnership. That sounds cool. That sounds like totally me. It's $85,000. I can't afford that. But I put the deposit down and said, I'll make the money in a year. Put down 10 grand, and a year and a half later, I was a part of Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership. I was also selected. Tony Robbins Platinum Lion had to be selected. Keith Cunningham, do your job. Keith's favorite words. Keith is Rich Dad from Rich Dad Poor Dad. Keith is the one that taught Robert Kiyosaki the cash flow quadrant. Keith is how Robert Kiyosaki is. And Keith teaches events. Keith also has something called the board of directors. And I meet with Keith 4 times a year for 2 days to do a board of directors with 10 other CEOs that are all 8-figure businesses. I had to apply to that for 3 years before I got a response. Apply. Eventually I got in. Persistence and doing what you say you're going to do is what gets you acceptance to these places and what allows you to grow. And when I look back at everything I just shared, whether it's the KWYP opportunity that 4 or 5 other people have tried to be presidents and regional ambassadors and haven't done it. They haven't executed. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. The 50 coffee dates in 50 days. So many people didn't do. Doing an event, mentoring, executing on stuff that people that are, quite frankly, I was a little guy in a big world. Still am. I still see myself as a little fish in a big world. When you make introductions like you did, I'm like, oh, that's cool. That sounds fun. Who's that guy? I still don't fully believe it's this. I know that Anna did a presentation a while back on imposter syndrome, where you're kind of like, am I really this? At the end of the day, we're all flesh and bone. We're all people. It's the actions that we take. It's the activities that we do. It's the follow through that we make that defines who we are. A goal is just a goal without execution. It's just a dream. Anything you want to accomplish in life, you can accomplish. But you have to do what you say you're going to do. And when you ask for guidance and leadership and mentorship, do it. And if you don't want to do it, or you want to do it your own way a little bit, go ahead and do it. You'll fail forward, and eventually you'll figure out that the way you were advised or guided is probably what's going to get you there the fastest. But the faster you figure that out, the faster you jump in and do it, is the faster you're going to get where you want to go. Now, I'll also say on the other side of the spectrum, I'm at a point in my life now where no is the best thing to do. I'm in a year of no. I know I could do 50 coffee dates, 50 days. I know I could go hire 20 more agents. I know I could recruit 20 more people. I could open 10 more businesses. In the last 18 months, I've closed businesses because as I grew over the last 5, 6, 7 years, I learned so many different things. I tried a lot. Like I look back at Bold, and Bold is 7 weeks, and every one of those weeks you kind of do a little different. It's like maybe cold calling or door knocking, or like you'll do different farming, circle prospecting, whatever that is. You'll learn something and you try it for a week. I've been doing that in life for 6, 7 years. Tried different businesses, mostly within real estate. Now I'm selling them, amalgamating them, getting out of them, moving away from them. Why? Because I know that apartment buildings are my superpower. Multi-residential apartment buildings are my superpower. And all I want to do every single day, the rest of my life, is own multifamily apartment buildings for my career and business and wealth. I may coach and train, I may speak, but I built this goal up that I wanted to have a family where I could be at every single one of my kids' soccer games or gymnastics competitions or ski days or pizza days and hand out the pizza to the 6-year-olds. I want to be there every single time. There was something I've said this before, and it's been a while since I've said it, but I want to be the dad that all the other kids in class go to my kid and say, does your dad work? The 5, 6, 7-year-old kids. I want to be the guy who's like, your dad's here all the time. Does he do anything? I don't want to be the dad that's like, hey, come on my private jet and fly around the world, blah, blah, blah. None of that matters. I don't give a shit about that stuff. What I actually do care about is the time, the quality time, and being present, being available, being there. And I've put the hours and the time into self-mastery. They say 10,000 hours to master something. I've spent well over 10,000 hours on education. And I've done that to have the ability to pick and choose what I want to do and have the luxury of now saying no. And if I get back to that time, money, and knowledge, I'm at a point now where I have money and I have knowledge. I want to buy back my time. And the whole thing comes full circle. When you mentioned at the beginning, you were mentoring and you're like, I'm going to go make you $400,000 or $1 million because you had time. You didn't have knowledge, you didn't have money. But as you put that time in and you trade your time for money, you get to a point in life where you go, okay, this is enough. I'm good with this. My number is $46 million at a 7% return, gives me $2.77 million a year. I learned that after 5 times, because I'm a slow learner with Tony Robbins, doing wealth mastery. And the reason I did that is because that gives me $500,000 to give to charity every year. Whatever I want. Youth entrepreneurs are really close to me because I was one. It gives me $25,000 a month for living expenses. It gives me $250,000 a year for a fuck you trip. I'm going to space in 2024. I recently found out that you can take a submarine to the Titanic for 250 grand. That's likely 2025 or 2026 on the calendar. These are the things in life that are really important to me. I'm happy with my house. Probably not in Canada if I'm here long term because I don't like the way the politics are going, but let's not go into that conversation. But I don't need 17 mansions in every country of the world. I mean, you can buy timeshares, you can travel the world and plant flags, have multiple different citizenships, so you can go to be where you want. You can spend time in freedom or where money is the best or where you have the best lifestyle. You choose. West Palm's great, sunny all year. So you look at like where you want to go and you start looking at how you can do that. But I've awarded myself that by doing what I say I'm going to do and following through on it.
Would you say the best way to get time back and succeed at the same time is to find that mentor that has already done what you want to do, and rather than MacGyvering your way to what they've done, you just align yourself with them, spend time with them, and say someone like Tony Robbins, I think he's 60 years old or something. You get 40 years of knowledge in 5 years. Like, think how much faster you're going to get where you're going versus the person that has to figure it out on their own.
So I'll go again with Kristen Cole. I've never actually talked to Kristen Cole in my life. I've been in the same room as her. I've been to multiple conferences she hosted, but that was from the beginning of my year. I remember you being in you were at ESO. It was you and Z were at ESO at the same time I was in Mississauga or something, which came a couple of years back. We didn't know why we were there. That's where the 2 appointments a day came from that I told you. There's a couple of things you take from everything. The other thing I took from her was that everyone should do this at least once a year, maybe a couple times a year. Sit down and write down your current 5 mentors. Who are the people you spend the most time with? Those 5 people, whatever that may be. And then who your dream mentors are. When was that event? That was probably 2017. Like, I don't think I bought property yet.
I don't even think I had sold a house. I have no idea why I was in that room.
But you were there because you were willing to like learn and educate. I'm sure you took something from it. What I took from it was 2 appointments a day, no questions asked, a bit of a schedule, and then this mentor thing. It was a 2-day event. Those are the 3 things I took from it. That's all. But I implemented them. And so the 5 mentors that I had on my list, Tony Robbins was on that list. Stephen Arnio was on that list. Chris Knighton was on that list. Sandy McKay was on that list. These guys were like a couple of years ahead of me in my real estate career, and I was like terrified. I'm like, how can I possibly get in a room with them? But by visualizing where that's going to be, and visualization doesn't need to be like sit down and meditate and close your eyes and look up at the stars. Visualizing can be as simple as who are your 5 people you spend the most time with right now, and who do they want to be? That can be visualization. What I found was within 18 months, all 5 of those people, actually, I think I made 7 or 8 when I was on that list, were in my world. Some of them were really close to me, like Sandy, like Chris. Even a couple years later, Stephen and Tony. I set this goal and this dream of like be in this room with someone. I mean, my business partner, Robbie, I mean, he wants to get into politics. He wants to be a president or ambassador, whatever he wants to be. He was born in Chicago and lives in Canada, so maybe the Canadian ambassador of both. He's putting it out in the universe and putting it out in the world. I mean, follow him, Robbie W. Clark, and all his videos are about visualization. He puts it out. He's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, and then he follows through with it. But he wanted to meet all these presidents. So 4 years ago or so, he spent a bunch of money. He was in a room with Donald Trump. Most recently, he went to the Clintons' house twice in the last 6 or 12 months. He's been at the Clintons' house. Bill and Hillary and everyone else. And he's there and he's having conversations. He's getting into this political world. And like, he's getting invited back. And then he's getting invited to be at tables with them. When there's all these other people that are 50, 60, 70, 80 that have been trying their whole life to get in a room with Clintons. But he's young, he's hungry, and he follows through on what he's going to say he's going to do. Now he gets to talk to the Clintons. Like, there is nobody out of reach if you say you will do something and you do it. And I can tell you right now, the one thing we haven't touched on enough of, which we probably should have said every single time, is it doesn't happen the first time. If you pick up on the patterns that I've mentioned, like David Berceau, I was a ghost in his world. It took me 2 or 3 years to get on his radar. I bugged the shit out of him. Sandy McKay, I think I told you I had to call him 17 times before he took a lunch with me to say I'll join KWIP. It was a $500 entry. 17 times. It's like persistence to what you really want. Know what your goal is, know what the visualization is, know where you want to go, and then go do it. And then you get to a point in your life where you have all the time, you have all the money, and you have all the knowledge you want, and then you get to buy back your time and put your head into whatever you want. And what that's come to me is what we've talked about today, and sharing and giving and all the different things that we're doing. I want to make this as available to everyone as humanly possible. And the reason why you started this by saying I'm back on these podcasts is because if I have a really fun and exciting and passionate thing to talk about, I'm like, Mike, Anna, get me on the podcast. I want to share as much knowledge as I can. This is like my 5th podcast in the last 2 weeks. I hadn't done one in like 3 years because I have some new business opportunities that can help people grow. I have new introductions that people can grow from. We have an event coming up August 1st. I'm bringing Tony Robbins' brother-in-law and his top coach and trainer, Steve Gill, who's my personal coach. Talk to Steve every week. They get hired, Steve gets hired for $35,000 US to fly all over the world and do corporate events for a max of 50 people. And they've given me an opportunity and made the exception to come to us in Burlington, Ontario, August 1st, and do a full day event called Business Results Training. And they're doing it, and they're opening it up to 700 people. They're doing that because of my influence. I had 92 people come to UPW last year. You were there. And 9 of them signed up for Platinum Partnership. A bunch want to. I know you would animate a goal for yourself in a couple of years to go to do a Platinum Partnership, but I highly recommend it. little bit out of reach once, but doing UPW isn't doing business mastery. You came to business mastery, like the value you got from business mastery. Put Tony's name aside. Think about the systems, the models, and the execution. Your business has probably grown exponentially from business result or from business mastery. And we're bringing some tools from business mastery, which is the 10, 10, 10, 150% growth in your business in a year, to Burlington. You're going to learn some of these tools and systems. You can learn how Tony and everyone in his ecosystem and in his world is actually benefiting from very simple systems and understanding patterns. The morning, we're going to talk about patterns, the economy, challenges, how you can pick up on some things that are happening, some nuances, and get ahead of it, how you can kind of forecast what's going to happen. Go back to history and help you predict. But what are the patterns that are happening that allow you to predict that ahead of time? Before the crash of 2007, 2008, Tony got tipped off through patterns and someone he was close with that there was going to be a stock market crash. And he called all of his platinum partners and he flew them out, and they went to India or Dubai or something. And they went and did a 5-day event out of nowhere. And it was because someone told him, Tony, get out of this, get out of this, get out of this, like it's going to crash. You can't tell anyone. And Tony said, can I tell my family? He said, yeah, you can tell your family. And then Tony said, well, the thing about my family is it's a bit of an extended family. The Platinum Partnership is my family. So there's 400 of my family members that are coming to learn. The guy was like, oh, I don't know, can't do that. And Tony's like, it's my family. It's his chosen family. And that group that went out and took action and did what Tony said saved themselves the fall of the 2007, 2008 stock market crash, the recession we went through last. And that's the type of stuff that you will learn August 1st, how to overcome that, predict that, and know about that. And we are in a recession. We have been. We've probably been in a recession for 4, 5, 6 years since COVID started. It just spikes and drops and spikes and drops and spikes and drops and spikes and drops. And it doesn't all show up the same. It could show up in the stock market or cryptocurrency or real estate market, whatever that may be. But you can pick up all the patterns as to why that happens and get out before the fall or get in at the bottom. Buy low, sell high. You're never going to perfect it. But if you buy when you're starting to go down, or you sell when you're starting to go down, and you buy when you're starting to go up, it's better than waiting until you're like, oh, I'll wait for the 90 days after, because that shit changes quick. And then everyone is down in their business this year. I haven't talked to a single person that the revenues are not down from last year. Why? Because there's less revenue going around. The money supply is shrinking. It has gone negative for the first time since 1930. And every time the N2 money supply goes negative, it's followed by a war of some sort. This probably isn't going to be a guns and swords war. It's a war on housing. It's a war on electricity. It's a war on certain politics. We have no idea what's going to happen, but you need to be at that event August 1st to understand how to do it. And by listening to this podcast, you can enter the podcast code POD!1 for 20% off your ticket at businessresults2023.ca. And if you're like, I want to influence a ton of people, this is actually happening a lot more than I expected. And I know you guys are talking about it as well. We have a networker package that allows you to buy 2,000 tickets for 20 tickets for $2,500. 20 tickets for $2,500. And that, what I've done with that is buy 20 tickets and give them to my clients. I want my clients at these events, because when you bring your clients to this exposure and you allow them to hear the information that most people on the streets are not hearing, they get ahead of it. You're going to have so much more business, and they're going to owe you for life. If think of the people that were in that room in 2007, 2008, when Tony brought people and they were able to exit. Some of these people are worth $100 million, and they're getting information they wouldn't get otherwise. And then they make business decisions because they take action on the information they get, which we talked about this whole session. They take action on that. If they could have saved, let's say that people went down 50, 60, 70%, someone's worth $100 million, that's 50, 60, $70 million. That person is forever in debt to Tony Robbins for bringing them to that event. And the timing could not be better for what this is going to be August 1st. Bring yourself, bring your clients, bring your friends to this event. And if you want more information on the networker package, or you want to be a sponsor, we do have a few sponsorship packages left. Feel free to reach out. You can reach out to Julia at gopm.ca. You can reach out to me at leads@elevationrealty.ca. That'll get back to me. Or you can find me on Instagram, send me a message, whatever that may be. But this is the time where education could not be more important, and knowing what other people have been through that are much smarter than me and you, and how they can predict. As I started this saying that before the Tony Robbins and the Keith Cunninghams, there was the Zig Ziglars. There's patterns in all of the education and the lessons that people talk about. You need to learn how to pick up on that pattern It's pattern recognition, pattern utilization, and pattern creation. These are the patterns you want to pick up on, and success leaves clues. I can tell you any little nuance or thing that I've learned at Bold or Keller Williams or Tony Robbins or whatever that may be. No pressure, no diamonds, whatever little phrase you want to include that came from probably a Zig Ziglar of the world or someone before him that we don't even know because history is so far back. People are saying those things, people are giving you those tips, and the people who pick up on those tips and execute on those tips, the people are going to be happier in 2024 and 2025 and build the life that they want and live a life worth living. So there's my summary in 45 minutes or so. What else you got for me, Mike?
So to a lot of people listening, that probably sounds like a sales pitch. It takes me back a year ago today when I heard a similar sales pitch from you. You were encouraging me to go to Business Mastery, and at that time I thought, oh my God, it was like $8,000 US for the ticket or something. And then I had to fly to Florida. I had to get a place in Florida. Nah, Dylan, like they got a lot going on right now. The market had just shifted. Not a good time. Anyways, you asked a couple times and finally I caved. I want to tell everyone listening that event was a Tony Robbins Business Mastery event, the single most impactful event I've ever attended from a business perspective, but more importantly than that, the person you will become as a result of sitting in the room with the individuals running the event, but also the attendees. You don't even know that person exists within you yet. So I encourage all of you to show up. It's not $8,000, it's super cheap. It will change your life.
Funny you say it's a sales pitch, because you know how much I got of that $8,000 or whatever you paid financially?
Zero.
Fuck all. And
what did I do when I got
4,
back
5,
to Canada? Again,
Yeah.
when you go to one of the events, you realize what it is and realize how impactful it is on the individuals that show up. When I got back from Business Mastery, I sold our whole team. You probably had 10 people go down to Florida for EPW. I didn't get paid anything. It's because the event was amazing.
Change people's lives. And Tony talks about it, UPW talks about the 6 human needs: certainty, uncertainty, love and connection, and significance are the 4 that are kind of ingrained in everyone. And when you get to the spiritual side, it's growth and contribution. And I didn't recognize or realize how important contribution in my life was. Growth has always been very evident, but how important contribution was, I always thought contribution is like donation and money and giving something, but you can donate your time or your energy or your influence. And why I'm bringing this event here is not money. We're giving a bunch of it back to charity, if it even makes money. It may lose money. It may cost me money to have people come here and teach you, listener, how to grow your life and be better in life and how to unlock secrets you may never have been able to unlock otherwise, or predict patterns you may not have otherwise. It cost me a spot that I could have opened up with someone else for you to come to Business Mastery, because I only get 2 of them. You paid the ticket price, but I ultimately get 2 people I get to bring. And you came, and I remember the conversations we had that whole week. It was like, just, you turned into SpongeBob, just absorbing, absorb. And I love watching that, because I know that you're going to take that influence and be a bigger influence on other people's lives. And that's how you impact the 5 people you spend the most time with, is that you influence them to influence others. It's how multi-level marketing happens. You go and tell 5 people, they tell 5 people, they tell 5 people, all of a sudden you have 3,000 people. That's how you create a better world. That's how you create a better environment. That's how you create a better ecosystem, is by being influential, pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, being in places that you're not comfortable being, and then playing full out and executing on what you say you're going to execute on.
100%. So for anyone who wants to go, it's www.businessresults2023.ca, 20% discount, pod, ! 1 for the 20% discount.
And if it doesn't work, use capitals for pod.
Okay. And we'll link all that below. You don't need to remember that.
And if you want to reach out and you want to do a networker package because you want to influence your friends, your family, your clients, whoever that may be, feel free to reach out, leads@elevationrealty.ca, and we'll link that in the podcast notes as well.
Amazing, Dylan. Thank you so much for your time, and everyone listening. We can't wait to see you at the event on August 1st.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
Every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day I'm hustling, every day